I'm at the northern edge of the shelter belt. These are generic boring pine trees. Now these went in as a nurse crop. These aren't going to be, here for the next 50, 60 years. These are just here for a little while. You can see just how many of them there are. They're good and dense. They're coming on really strong at this point, but they're just here as a nurse crop. In front and around it, we've got this lot, which is alder. That's a common alder. Inside that, all the ones in the tubes, there's a double row of hazel. We've also got, really mixed species shelter belt. We've got a lot of productive stuff, like we've got crab apple has been planted through wild cherry, wild pear, Pyrus communis, really good productive stuff that we can also graft to at a later stage. We've also got things like this beech, which if it's treated right, keeps its leaves through the winter like this one. So you get, we've had, I don't know how many storms this winter. That'll be the subject of another video. It's been a brutal winter for storms. And this thing has still got its leaves on. It's amazing. Beech in a hedge system or kept fairly clipped in a shelter belt, hugely productive. But to get the system established, initially we went with whatever was cheapest, and these are some of those. So we just went with whatever pine trees we could get for free or for very little cost indeed. But rather than just grow them out and then cull them, because that seems a waste of a pretty good tree, and yeah, we could use it as firewood, we could mulch with it, we could make multiple yields from it. I'd rather make something really good and productive from it. So what we've been doing for the last few years, we've done it in a few other places as well, but seeing as it's a nice day today, thought we'd get a video on it. I'm going to pin this tree right down to the ground as tight as I can get it. This is pushing it, to be honest with you. That's why I'm starting with this one. I haven't done it with a tree quite this big before. We'll give it a go. Now, the whole point is we're doing a full passive solar refit to the house over the next few years. And as a part of that as well, we're taking out some of the internal walls, we're swapping them out with cob and, more attractive doors and so on. So it'll be more in keeping with like the, the rocket mass heater and the bottle brick walls and all the rest of it, the other projects that we got planned for the interior of the house. I don't want to just go and get a standard 2x4 and put that in as a lintel. I'd rather use something that's actually, curved and shaped, and something that's actually grown here on the land is a lot more interesting. So that's basically what we're doing with these, is we're turning them into building materials by training them into shapes that we can then use at a later stage. In this case, that is, by the time I've got that pinned down, that's probably, by the time it's up to here, that's what, 5 feet? Yeah, that's a pretty decent lintel already. By the time this has grown out and then grown upwards at the edge there, we could take this up to maybe, 6, 7 feet at, a good, decent thickness of timber that we can actually use. And that'll take years, of course, but it doesn't matter because we're not doing anything else with it in the meantime. It's just time, and time we've got. So I've been careful of which ones of these I've done, because I don't want to pin them to the ground in such a way that it's going to cause a problem for the other trees that we actually do want to come through. Now as it goes, you can see there was a tree here. That's something that has failed. Whatever it was, it's not alive now. So we'll actually pull that out. There's no point having it down here. But, I don't want to interfere. For example, that is some kind of currant. That, from the looks of it, is a... what is that? That's a gooseberry, I think. So that'll be an understory for this beech. I don't want to cause problems for either of those, but the beech can handle a little bit of competition, by the tip growing out and through it, and they'll support each other for a little while until this goes. So I'm not concerned about that, because that's about as big as it'll get before it starts going vertical again. And the beech by then will be a bit higher as well. So that's all good. It's not interfering with the alder, which is, one of the the final species I want to stay here. This is not going anywhere. It probably won't even be coppiced. It'll just be allowed to go to a full height tree. So this is about perfect, really. There's another row behind me here. So I think that's another alder. I've got, I think that might be alder as well, but there's an oak behind me there. So I'm quite lucky, really, and such a big tree getting pinned down isn't going to cause problems. I've got a pretty good footprint. So I'm going to get a big peg. This is an ash peg that we used to use for the tent. They've been left outside. They've got trashed. They're not really good for much else, but they're ideal for this. So I'm going to put that in about there, I think, at a decent angle. Now, that's been quite a big tree. I'm going to take that in. See how that holds. In terms of string, before I've used all sorts of stuff, including stuff that I've just salvaged from the beach. But this is what I've got. This is a jute twine. It won't last for that long. It's obviously, it'll biodegrade, it'll break down within a year or so probably, but that's fine. Doesn't really matter, because I'll be coming around and maintaining it every couple of years anyway. So I pin the tree down now, so I know that just behind this section here is just about right for contact with that peg there. So I'm going to wrap that around it, just pass it through the loop, and that's not going anywhere. Now I'm going to take that loop, I'm going to pin this down, I'll go down until that hits the notch, and there we go. And that's pretty low. If this was like a synthetic cord and it was left here really long term, that would start to bite in, and it can leave, you know, really disfigured bark and so on. But this isn't a problem. This is going to be moved probably at least once a year or so, because the string's going to rot out, and that's not a problem. I'm quite prepared to do it. It's just part of the maintenance of it. So I could actually come through and trim some of these side branches out if I wanted to, but really, until the point that it's harvested, this is going to continue to grow sideways, and it'll give me more protection low down. I mean, you can see those trees behind, you know, off to my left there. Imagine all of them pinned down the same and starting to grow out good and thick and bushy. That's really good wind protection low down, which is exactly where we need it, just to get, you know, the more sensitive trees up. Not that, you know, these are struggling, but we do have eventually a lot of fruit trees on the inside, and, you know, other areas of the croft already. Some of the bigger trees are giving a decent amount of protection for stuff that we've got in. So this is just making a slightly better yield from something that's just in as a nurse crop. But yeah, that's very cool. So by the time we've done all of these this morning, I'm only putting 3 or 4 in onto the bigger trees. The others can come on a little bit before I start pinning them down. But already that gives me enough lintels for all of the interior doors that I want to change. It's just a question of time. And, you know, it just sits here growing. It's time we've got. We're finished for the day. We were literally about to start walking up the field when we walked past this one. This is one that was done, a good few years ago. Now, what's happened over the course of the winter is that's been pulled out of the ground. The cordage, which you can see, has dug into the bark, so I'll have to pull that off. But there we go. See, that hasn't been maintained recently enough. But you see, that'll survive all fine. But you can see that now has no peg, that has no cord, and it's in the shape that we want. So it doesn't need to be trained for that long. That's very, very cool. That is exactly what I'm after. So that'll continue to grow sideways, and I've got myself a nice horizontal beam for going over a door or a window or whatever in a natural cob building. Very cool. Pleased with that.